The visitor from South Africa fell ill on his flight home, spreading the virus not only in the country but possibly to fellow passengers. The party guests attended other gatherings. But on the morning of March 8th, 3 days after the party, Julie Endich, one of the guests, woke up in Westport with a fever that spiked to 104 degrees and pain, tightness, and heaviness like somebody was standing on her chest. She knew her suggested COVID. There are no test kits. At noon on March 8th, there were no test kits, it looks like, in Westport. If you want to read this, go to New York Times. Waiting for the White House press briefing, that will be starting in about 5 minutes, if it's on time. What is this? This is from the chair of Department of Surgery at Columbia Surgery. It's posting daily updates. Official Twitter, Columbia University Department of Surgery. Okay, let's read this. COVID cases are still accelerating. COVID cases are still accelerating at a rate consistent with projections. This means pressure on beds and ICU and ventilator capacity on our personnel and our PPE is still accelerating in parallel. Today, the creativity of our colleagues is raising my spirits. CU and Columbia engineers have been working on 3D printing solutions to the scarcity of face shields. Blah, 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 blah. We are making impressive progress towards increasing our bed capacity. Anyways, here's an interesting account to follow, Columbia Surgery, because every day the head of surgery posts an update. Oh, anyways, it's at Columbia Surgery. Here's an update from the White House press briefing room. Howard Mortman, new White House press corps briefing room seating reorganization. White House Correspondents Association has just changed the seating chart again, providing more space between reporters following word that an unnamed White House Correspondents Association member who has been at the White House as a suspected case of COVID-19. In case you didn't hear it, the White House Correspondents a member of the press who's been at the White House 4 times over the last 2 weeks is a suspected case of COVID-19. We don't know who that is yet. Thank you, Precious Loves Lopez and MJ McCrae, for your support. Thank you. So we're waiting for the White House press briefing 4 minutes from now. It's supposed to be in 4 minutes. 1 minute, well, we'll see if it starts on time. In theory, the White House press briefing will start in 1 minute. I am not seeing the video yet, so as soon as I see it, I will let you know. Let's see here. What is the latest updates by? 88 new cases and 2 new deaths in Connecticut. This is BNO. 82 new cases in Arizona. 97 new cases and 1 new death in California. We talked about some of these already. The total number of cases right now in the U.S. is 40,707, 525 deaths. And you can see U.S. is now 3rd among all countries. I need to change my headline, 375087, as the world total keeps going up higher.
Had to fix me a quick snack.
So again, we are waiting for the White House press briefing to start.
I'm so fucking silly, yo. I took some ground beef out the deep freezer for dinner tonight. You know what I did with it? I took it out the deep freezer, brought it upstairs, and put it in the other freezer. Shit is still frozen. Oh, Pete, you know what time it is. Ain't nothing changed over here, dog. Oh yeah. Like I said, don't nothing change, bro. I figured out the one thing I'm good at. I just might as well do that shit all the time. That's why I try to tell other people. Just figure out what you're good at and do that. You know?
Being concerned that the cure was worse than the disease or something like that. So I'm sure he'll be asked about it. Well, I don't know if he's going to be there, but I'm guessing if it's Vice President Pence, he'll be asked about it.
Now all Congress and everybody catching the thing. All the way from Ustream. Oh, you're an old timer. Ustream was so long ago, bro. Like, that's where I started at, honestly. I started on Ustream, and then they shut that down, and then I just switched it over to YouTube. Been on YouTube ever since. But yeah, a lot of people don't even know about Ustream, yeah. Them was the good old days when you could be ratchet.
I don't believe, by the way, 15 days
Yeah.
is enough for it even to show
Ustream was ratchet as shit.
It takes several weeks, I believe.
And then what the other one was, Daily Motion or some shit like that. Yeah, all that shit done. Now you just got Twitch. On the PlayStation Network, they only connected Twitch and YouTube now. I still can't believe I didn't defrost the ground beef, yo. Why didn't I defrost the ground beef? Moving too fast, trying to leave the house this morning, or was running late. Supposed to take it out the freezer and put it in a bowl with water so it can thaw out by the time I get home. No, from one freezer to another freezer.
Charles Barkley tests negative from TMZ. We hadn't heard about Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley?
TMZ is reporting he tested negative. Like 9 or 10 days ago.
Yeah, a lot has changed since Ustream. Currently working on this beautiful painting.
In expressing your concern and support, Chuck said in a statement, "You'll all be safe, and please take the necessary actions to help you ensure your well-being." It was 11 days ago. He said he had gotten the test. 11 days ago.
Haven't done the black and white. painting in a while, so this is a lot of fun, yo. Like, really enjoy working on this piece.
There it is, Richard Deitch posted.
So we can sit here and chat and bust it up for a little while. And probably try to do like 2 hours this evening. This is an after work stream. Believe it or not, I still have a job and I'm still working daily. So Tyson. But yeah, I'm still working daily, so I have work in the morning. So like I said, I try to get up in here for 2 hours. And since I didn't thaw the ground beef out for dinner, I have to do something quick. Like, I don't know, I'll probably like cook a pizza or something, I guess, or some.
Sometime soon it will, and we will show it to you live.
I don't know. So, ooh.
Give me a shout if you have comments, questions, updates at listener.
I do have some Jamaican beef patties in there. Those are pretty good, and they only take like 20 minutes to cook. Yeah, I do feel kind of lucky. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why are you still going to work? You should tell your job you don't feel safe going in and this and that." And I'm like, the longer I can fucking put off filing for unemployment, the better, I think. So I'll work up until the day they tell me I can't work. And then after that, oh yeah, them Jamaican beef patties, bro, them shits hit the spot, son. But shit is getting really real now, yo. Like, the UK has called for a very aggressive lockdown for the next 3 weeks, where there's no gatherings larger than 2 people.
State action.
If they see 3 people together, that's a gathering, and they can break that up and fine you or send you home. There's only certain hours of the day where you can come out to do your shopping. You're allowed to go for a jog or something once a day for during a certain period of the day, but you can only do it by yourself and not in groups. And some other shit, yeah. But there is like, this is gonna last for the next 3 weeks.
The state hasn't done much at all. Mississippi, closed non-essential businesses, no. Closed bars and restaurants, no.
That's crazy. All right, Mr. Tyson, you're hired. You can start next Monday. Next Monday come, the world is fucking ending. I got a job. I didn't even start my first day yet. That's wild.
5:37. We are awaiting the press briefing. White House, which was supposed to start at 5:30. We'll bring it to you live as soon as it's.
That's why I do everything now. Cause who the fuck knows about next week? You know what I'm saying? Don't procrastinate. Y'all got y'all a cup of noodles for the apocalypse? Yo, we're gonna be eating these rations for a while. I hope you got some. These cup of noodles hit different when the world ended. Space age.
In case you missed it, the UK is entering a lockdown.
I think when they say they're going to start to stop all non-essential businesses,
people in UK will now only be allowed.
I was talking to Blunt Mover last night, and he drives
non-essential shops
Uber.
Gatherings,
but it's like, I'm surprised that they're still letting people drive Uber and Lyft. So I think there may be a ban on even services like that, where you're a private contractor. But I don't know. And I heard they were counseling the entire school year. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna say April the 9th, and then they're gonna say May the 20th, and then they're gonna say just let's put it off until next school year. Yeah. So.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Now, David Nakamura, well, I don't know if this is true. David Nakamura is claiming that a reporter got COVID-19. Earlier, we heard a reporter had suspected COVID-19. Now, he says a reporter got COVID-19.
From where? CNN?
But I don't know. I feel like this might just be a little sloppy here, because I haven't seen this reported anywhere else. All we've heard is that a White House reporter is suspected of having COVID-19. So I don't know how Dave.
And that's what I'm saying. If they're trying to quarantine and self-isolate and social distance everyone who has this shit, then what happens when everybody in the government catches it? Is Congress going to shut down for 3 weeks? Is the president going to have to self-quarantine for 3 weeks? This is the weird part. They're saying, 80% of the population will catch it. Okay, but how do you go forward from there, like, if everyone has to stay in their fucking house? It's coming, bro. The purge. That's what I keep saying, bro. It's about to be the purge, man. As I'm saying, April the 9th, May the 15th. School supposed to be out by June. What you gonna do? Make the kids go to school over the summertime or something? I don't know, bro.
Hey, thanks, Bluebird Softball. Thank you, Bluebird Softball. I appreciate it. Thank you.
There's 375,000 global cases of this shit now.
In case you hadn't seen earlier, some of the case numbers from May. New York this morning announced.
Yo, what up, guys? You gotta beat it like the mumps and chicken pox. Oh my God. Somebody at your job got that shit, yo. Here it comes. The major wave of everybody knowing somebody who got that shit. You know what? I might say I got that shit and just go on medical leave or some shit like that. If it's a medical condition, I can go on like short-term disability for COVID-19. Yeah, North Carolina way better than New York right now. I say I'm only a little bit from Philly, so. Move out the way before I can see that beautiful painting. I ate all my noodles that fast? Damn. A couple noodles ain't don't seem so big when you grown. When you a kid, this shit seem like a whole meal. But for an adult, this shit like that's why I ate it. It's just a snack. That's all that shit is. A little snack.
And this was the report about the White House Correspondents Association. White House Correspondents Association posted about Parliament. We have been informed one of our colleagues
What? You ain't got medical leave or paid time off? What?
weeks, forever. I mean, until a few days
That's
ago,
kind of that's a
let them all sit right there.
that's a gamble right there. Working for somebody who won't give you medical.
But certainly there's a significant
Hey man, I need you to pay me by the hour, but I also need you to agree that if I get sick and I can't work, you need to help me out on that shit too.
And the White House press briefing starting anytime, as soon as
Oh, who's this? This is Coffee Cakes. Coffee Cakes. And she's so fine. Don't play.
and another
So fine.
primary care facilities in the U.S. ABC 7 News first
You know what's crazy? Me and her daughter almost the same age, bro. I like coffee cakes too. Shit is delicious. That's crazy. Miss Coffee Cakes. Man, I'm still hungry, man. I gotta stop smoking, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. I need to stop smoking. That shit just make me eat up all my damn groceries. But I might have to, you know. See, I knew that cup of noodles wasn't gonna be enough. So I brought backup for these intense munchies. Martial law is coming. Martial law is here, big homie. Martial law already here. You ain't gotta be afraid as long as you prepared. As long as you are prepared. Don't be scared. Be ready. I need you to be ready. Not afraid. I ain't never think Alex Jones been crazy. That's why I listened to Alex Jones for years. I met the man in person and got an autograph. I ain't never think he was crazy. In recent years, I just disagree with him more on certain issues, so I don't follow him as much. But Alex Jones is the one who taught me what martial law is and how and when they would use martial law in a scenario just like this. And not just him, bro. Anybody can predict this. You can listen to Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky's been talking about this shit for 50 fucking years. You know what I'm saying? Even the fictional writers like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley predicted scenarios like this in the 1920s. You know, it's not Alex Jones isn't like some fucking prophet or some visionary or something. Anybody who pays attention to global trends, world finances, and fucking international relations can see where the world was headed to. That's why they had the League of Nations. That's why they created the UN. You know, and it's always something next. So yeah, and I didn't agree with that either. I didn't even though I don't follow him as closely as I used to. I mean, Joe Rogan did a really good episode on like why it's really really bad that they banned Alex Jones. That was a really really bad thing that happened. Everyone should know that, you know? Like I never yeah, and once again, I never thought Alex Jones was crazy. Yeah, that's what I know Tyson from New York. I thought she was my age. And then she said, "Happy birthday to my daughter who just turned 35." I'm like, "God damn, woman. Do what? Your child is how old? Get the fuck out of here." Somebody lying some way. I don't know who it is, but somebody telling a lie. You ain't got no kid in their mid-30s. Ain't no way in hell. Too damn fine. It don't make no sense, bro. You know, hey, you you look up the phrase "black don't crack." Google that shit. You probably find a picture of her. I said he was crazy because of Sandy Hook. Bro, get the fuck out of here. I never said fucking Alex Jones was crazy. Never said that. Not even when he started talking about Sandy Hook. You said Alex Jones was crazy when he was talking about Sandy Hook. Bro, you must have been listening to the wrong person, bro. Nine 11 Truth. Infowars.com. Infowars.com. Bro. I've been writing rap songs shouting out Alex Jones and Infowars before you knew who Alex Jones and Infowars even was, bro. I been did this shit. Never called Alex Jones crazy for none of his opinions. Motherfucker got a lot of facts, hardcore facts. It's some of his more recent opinions. I just don't agree with his opinions. Never called the man crazy for shit. Exactly. So I've been shouting Alex Jones and Infowars out for over 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Yeah, one of the very few paintings of a white person I did just for myself. It ain't like I did it for a job because somebody hired me to paint a picture of somebody. I painted a picture of Alex Jones because I respect the man. I'll sell it to you half price. $1,000 because I want $2,000 for it. Yeah. I normally wouldn't give nobody that big of a discount. But since we know each other, you know. And that's the reason I'm trying to give you such a big discount. 50% off. I know everybody feeling the stress from the corona. You know what I'm saying? Corona got motherfuckers stressed out right now. You know? Corona got the whole world fucked up. Coronavirus got his own Instagram page now. Like that shit a person. You know what I'm saying? Every time you wake up to the news, good morning. In the coronavirus news. Like this motherfucker run the goddamn world right now, bro. Not at the moment. Governor Wolf, he trying to hold out as much as he can, but that shit coming, bruh. Oh, that shit coming. Like I say, man, we right by New York and New Jersey. So, New York locking down, New Jersey locking down. And then I ain't that far from Philadelphia. Once Philadelphia locked down, the whole state gonna shut down. But like I say, I'm still going to work every day. Oh, homeboy, what your name is? Another corn job? What? Amputated corn cob. What? Karobi? I don't know. But I'm speaking English. So if you try to put some other language in here, I don't know what the fuck that shit say. It's Russian. Congratulations. I'm not trying to offend you in your Russianness. I don't speak that shit, bro. I don't understand the words that you are trying to type. Communism? You're not bringing communism over here, man. Are you? I didn't think so. In other coronavirus news, coronavirus. Only thing motherfucker can think about coronavirus. Everybody got hip hop coronavirus songs now. The coronavirus dance. I can't escape the memes. Just coronavirus memes everywhere. Some of them should be funny as hell though. communistic alphabet. This motherfucker trying to speak in code. We ain't got time for codes, man. We up front and direct. See, man, it's throwing off everything, man. I was supposed to buy me a Tesla this year and go on vacation. That
all
shit
around
fucked
the
up.
last few days, supposedly be a hospital in Spain. So all I know is that it's a dubious video that's floating around the internet.
I saw the video too of the hospital, supposedly hospital in Spain, where people just are lying on the floor in the hallways and just dying in front of everybody else. It's like, so tired of seeing these images. The KGB, motherfucker, all up in my stream, yo. I'm telling you, man, guilty by association, man. Y'all motherfuckers think they don't be watching. They listening, they listening. What the fuck? It's kind of harsh, bro.
Guys, I need 1 minute. I'm going to leave this up there. If the briefing starts while I'm gone, you will see it and hear it. So give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. But you'll see the briefing in 1 minute. If it somehow starts in that minute, I'll be right back. You'll see it. All right? Hang on 1 second.
I'm saving the human race by sitting here in front of the TV. Where am I from? You know what? If you weren't a KGB agent, I would probably tell you where I'm from. But since you are a KGB agent, I'm just going to assume that you have the resources to find out for yourself. They listening to all your phone calls, your conversations with your relations. They listening.
Wow, they are really late. They're really late. Usually, it's now 36 minutes late. Usually, they'll at least make an announcement and say we pushed. Oh, there we go. See, there it is. We got it. How about this? All right, the briefing's coming up. So there's the room. we will see the briefing shortly. I'm going to have to update my headline, too. They don't have, we'll get sound on it, too, as well. What is the number of cases right now?
Elon Musk been trying to tell you to worry about Google for 10 years now. Nobody don't want to listen to the smart people until the shit too late, man. It's too late now. Google know everything. Yeah, the president coming on in a second. I'm gonna try to listen to this, some of what he say real quick. They listening. Edward Snowden told you that we Snowden. Now you're frozen, cause they watch your modem. The KGB agents ask a lot of questions, bro. Motherfuckers be snooping. Why you try to snoop on me, man? Snoop, 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 Snoopy Snoop. Snoop, snoop, snoop.
Three 75707. Continues to climb. This is from Mike Saccone. Mike Saccone reports, Brigham and Women's Hospital in Massachusetts, 22 healthcare workers.
That shit gonna be short as hell. That shit gonna have 3 chapters.
Brigham and Women's Hospital. 22. Oh, they're about to start. All right, well, so anyways, we'll talk about
KGB
that.
say you smoking hash? Damn, officer.
Anyway, so as we wait, 22 healthcare workers at Brigham and Women's Hospital up from 9 on Friday. 20 at Tufts Medical Center up from 10 on Friday. Several at
writing a
General
book.
Hospital and 1 at Boston Children's Hospital. So
Take a picture, it'll last longer.
Dozens of healthcare workers in Massachusetts have now tested positive for coronavirus.
It's crazy too, cause I know a lot of nurses, yo. Actually, my sister's a nurse. One of my other sister, she works in a nursing home.
Right as this whole thing is getting started. You can see Attorney General Bill Barr is on the podium. I don't know if the president's going to be there today, or if it's just going to be Mike Pence. I have no idea.
He's American as apple cake.
Stan Explorer says, where is the social distancing? Again, I have no idea.
Yeah, where is the social distancing when it comes to fucking the people in Congress and all these press conferences and shit? Nobody's social distancing at these
Thanks,
things.
Lorraine, none of your business. I appreciate it. Lorraine, none of your business. Thank you.
Lorraine, none of your business.
I owe a thank you to T. Allen Hugh for your support. Thank you, T. Allen Hugh.
Haters, what up? What up? Trying to listen to our own
No presidential seal, no
news
president.
brief update.
No, President Trump is actually there. He is there.
Like I've listened to a couple of other countries, the UK, Canada, somewhere like the Netherlands or somewhere. I was listening to those earlier today. So the UK, KGB looking ass. So the UK has issued like the harshest civilian lockdown so far.
Any moment now,
they're saying for the next 3 weeks, no gatherings larger than 2 people. You're restricted to leave your house certain hours of the day, and you're restricted to outside time for non-essential movement and travel.
Well, thank you very much, and I see we have fewer people because of the virus problem, and we appreciate you being here. And
that's why New York has the National Guard already, because they know the New Yorkers are gonna fucking fight this shit, yo. So this is Trump right here.
Today we extend our best wishes to the person affected, and we feel sure that he or she will be better very soon. And thank you for being here. America continues to mobilize every segment of our society to turn the tide in the battle against the virus. I want Americans to know that we will get through this challenge. The hardship will end. It will end soon. Normal life will return, and our economy will rebound very, very strongly.
That's
but right now, in the midst of this great national trial, Americans must remain united in purpose and focused on victory. To every single American, please know that the sacrifice you're making at this time is saving lives, many, many lives. It's very important that we totally protect our Asian American community in the United States and all around the world. They're amazing people, and the spreading of the virus is not their fault in any way, shape, or form. They're working closely with us to get rid of it. We will prevail together. It's very important. From the beginning, we have been working closely with our nation's best scientists and medical professionals, and we will continue to do so until we have defeated the virus. Our public health experts, who are terrific, are studying the variation in the disease across the country, and we will be using data to recommend new protocols to allow local economies to cautiously resume their activity at the appropriate time. We also have a large team working on what the next steps will be once the medical community gives the region the okay, meaning the okay to get going, to get back. Let's go to work. Our country wasn't built to be shut down. This is not a country that was built for this. It was not built to be shut down. My administration continues to work with Democrats and Republicans to reach an agreement on an urgent relief bill for the millions of American workers and small businesses and large businesses that were badly affected by the medical difficulty that we've had. If you had a viable business in January, we are committed to ensuring the same is true in the coming weeks. In fact, we want to make it even better than it was before, and we're doing things to help in that regard. America will again and soon be open for business, very soon. A lot sooner than 3 or 4 months that somebody was suggesting. A lot sooner. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. We're not going to let the cure be worse than the problem. At the end of the 15-day period, we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go, where we want to go, the timing, and essentially we're referring to the timing of the opening, essentially the opening of our country, because we have it pretty well shut down in order to get rid of this invisible enemy. 2 weeks ago, we moved at record speed to pass paid sick leave and paid family medical leave and approve $8 billion, including money for the development of treatments and vaccines, and we're doing tremendous work on both fronts. The vaccines are coming along very quickly. Now Congress must demonstrate the same bipartisanship again and join together to pass the Senate bill as written and avoid playing any more partisan games. They have to get together and just stop with the partisan politics. And I think that's happening. I got a call a little while ago. I guess they're getting closer. It should go quickly. And it must go quickly. It's not really a choice. They don't have a choice. They have to make a deal. This should not be a time for political agendas, but rather one for focusing solely and squarely on the needs of the American people. We are going to save American workers, and we're going to save them quickly. And we're going to save our great American companies, both small and large. This was a medical problem. We are not going to let it turn into a long-lasting financial problem. It started out as a purely medical problem, and it's not going to go beyond that. We're just not going to allow that to happen. Our country was at its strongest financial point. We've never had an economy like we had just a few weeks ago, and then it got hit with something that nobody could have ever thought possible. And we are fixing it. We're fixing it quickly. And I want to just thank the American people for what they've been through and what they're doing. Our country will be stronger than ever before, and we fully anticipate that, and it won't be that long. Let me provide you with an update on critical supplies. FEMA is distributing 8 million N95 respirator masks and 13.3 million surgical masks across the country right now. Focusing on the areas with the greatest need, we've shipped 73 pallets of personal protective equipment to New York City and 36 pallets to the state of Washington. In the past 96 hours, FEMA has also received donations of approximately 6.5 million masks. We're having millions and millions of masks made as we speak, and other personal protective equipment, which we will be distributing to medical hotspots. We're focused on some of the hotspots. Across the nation, we're seeing an outpouring of creativity and innovative ideas widely shared between the federal health leaders, governors, and mayors, the scientific community, and members of the private sector. Really working together. Everybody's working together. I'm pleased to report that clinical trials in New York will begin existing for existing drugs that may prove effective against the virus. At my direction, the federal government is working to help obtain large quantities of chloroquine. And you can look from any standpoint tomorrow in New York. We think tomorrow pretty early, the hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pak, I think is a combination, probably is looking very, very good, and it's going to be distributed. We have 10,000 units going, and it'll be distributed tomorrow. It'll be available, and is now. They already have it. They're going to distribute it tomorrow morning to a lot of people in New York City and New York. We're studying it very closely, watching it very closely. You probably saw a couple of articles today came out where a gentleman, they thought he was not going to make it. He said goodbye to his family. They had given him the drug just a little while before, but he thought it was over. His family thought he was going to die. A number of hours later, he woke up, felt good. Then he woke up again, and he felt really good, and he's in good shape.
But the purge will come, yo. If it's a difference between being scared, afraid, or whatever, and being desperate. And the fear in combination with being desperate, that's when people will resort to violence. So right now people are kind of like panicky, a little bit nervous of what's going to happen because the situation is changing from day to day. Our governments across the world are taking this total dictatorship-like control over our lives and telling us we can't work, we can't leave our houses, we can't assemble in groups. But, you know, the lights are still on, we still have internet, we still have food and water. So people don't feel desperate. But as soon as we start losing the ability to communicate, God forbids if parts of our power grid have to go down for any amount of time, if the manufacturers of goods are unable to keep the shelves filled with essential items for any, you know, substantial period of time, yeah, there will definitely be looting and riots, which will turn into violence, which will turn into, I don't really know what. You know, there's a lot of tension in this country that has always been there. And I honestly do think that, like, a lot of these white nationalists, skinhead, KKK, racist groups will, if there is a total, not just a governmental lockdown, but a total, like, fallout, anarchy state that emerges from this shit, yo, people are going to take advantage of that shit. That's guaranteed. There's nowhere around it, you know. And so I just hope it doesn't get that far. Dr. Bricks is my bottom bitch. Damn, that's crazy, yo. Purge, Mad Max, sprinkle a little bit of Walking Dead in that shit, yo. And that's the thing, in situations like this, bro, you're talking about holding our leaders accountable when they're just as afraid of catching a deadly disease, an upper respiratory viral infection that may kill them. Once again, when people feel desperate, everything out the fucking window, bro. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna do nothing but worry about you and yours. And that's it, yo. You gonna worry about you and yours. And I don't give a fuck if you're a politician. You know what I'm saying? If shit gets real bad,
hundreds of thousands. Manufacturing workers are transforming their assembly lines. Citizens are volunteering to deliver food and medicine to the elderly. We're truly seeing America at its best. We're really seeing things that people never thought even could happen. Frankly, we never thought this could happen. But the way most Americans are working toward getting it solved and just doing what they have to do to make this go away has been incredible. It's been incredible. I want to take a moment to thank the everyday heroes who are making our vast effort against the virus possible. And thank you to the healthcare workers and the first responders.
Oh yeah,
definitely. People. Thanks also to the hardworking men and women of.
That shit is only going to help the people in power to keep this level of authority over everyone, yeah.
Stores working the night shifts so that shelves can be restocked, and the restaurant workers and delivery drivers keeping our families fed. So many of those restaurants are doing service where
I think he blamed both of them for this shit, yo.
Invisible scourge. And all of the uplifting reflections of the American spirit are out there for everyone to see. Together we will care for our fellow citizens, and we will win this war, and we'll win it.
I think this is the longest I've actually listened to Trump speak in a long time, yo. Like,
pretty soon.
I've been listening to Trump actually
Also
speak
pretty
for
soon.
over
Now
5
I'd
minutes.
like to ask Attorney General Bill Barr to say a few words, and
That's what's
we'll
up, bro.
take questions in a little while. Thank you.
Let me start by thanking you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, for your decisive leadership.
A battle to save American lives.
Protect the health and
This
safety
war
of
talk.
personnel, while at the same time keeping our enforcement efforts at full throttle. So I'd like to thank all of
Keeping our enforcement efforts at full throttle.
not
What?
just those at the federal
I gotta turn this up, son.
all our state and local partners, the police officers, the sheriff's deputies who are protecting and serving their communities, often at great risk to themselves. What I'd like to do here is start with a few remarks about the order that the President mentioned to ensure the availability of critical medical and health supplies from hoarding and price gouging. On March 18th, the President issued Executive Order 13909 invoking the Defense Production Act with respect to the health and medical resources needed to respond to the spread of COVID-19, including PPE and ventilators. We have started to see some evidence of potential hoarding and price gouging.
So you know what that means, right? They're gonna send the military in under martial law and make sure you're not hoarding. And if you are, they're gonna take your shit.
Necessary hoarding that threatens the supply of those necessary health and medical resources. Under Section 102 of the Defense Production Act,
Oh, there we
the
go.
President is authorized to prohibit the hoarding of needed resources by designating those materials as scarce or as materials whose supply would be threatened by persons accumulating excessive amounts. Once specific materials are so designated, persons are prohibited from accumulating those items in excess of reasonable personal or business needs, or for the purpose of selling them in excess of prevailing market prices. It is a crime to engage in prohibited activity. In today's executive order, the President is delegating to the Secretary of HHS this authority to protect against hoarding by designating these critical items. Now, no items have been designated yet, and the Department of Justice is going to be working with HHS to identify cases where hoarding may be impeding the supply of health and medical resources needed to respond to the COVID-19.
Okay, that's a way for them to get into your house right there, yo.
Today we convened our first task force meeting, a national task force that will be working on these supply chain issues and specifically on the problem of hoarding and price gouging. And we are designating in each of our 93 United States Attorney's offices a lead prosecutor who will be responsible in that district for pursuing these cases. I also want to say that we have not waited for this order to be signed. As we have received evidence recently, we have already initiated investigations of activities that are disrupting the supply chain and suggestive of hoarding. I want to stress that we're not talking about consumers or businesses stockpiling supplies for their own operations. We're talking about people hoarding these goods and materials on an industrial scale for the purpose of manipulating the market and ultimately deriving windfall profits. If you have a big supply of toilet paper in your house, this is not something you have to worry about. But if you are sitting on a warehouse with masks surgical masks, you will be hearing a knock on your door. So with that, Mr. President, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, so it's for warehouse size stashes right now. Sooner or later, it's going to be for all stashes.
I want to really thank all the ministers of health around the world who have been sending us their data despite the fight that they're in themselves, particularly our European colleagues. They continue to send us primarily their mortality data, which is really very critical because when you're in the midst of this level of fight that many of the European countries are, following mortality data will give you the best insight right now on how the epidemic is proceeding in those countries because they really can't be testing at the level to really understand the depth and breadth of their new cases. In the mortality data that has been provided to us, there has been no child under 15 that has succumbed to the virus in Europe. There was the one 14-year-old in China. So we still see that there is less severity in children. And so that should be reassuring to the moms and dads out there. To Generation Z and to my millennial colleagues who have been really at the forefront of many of these responses, less than 1% of all the mortality is less than 50. And so this is, I think, also a very important point. That doesn't mean that individuals won't have severe disease. So still 99% of all the mortality coming out of Europe in general is over 50 and pre-existing conditions. The pre-existing condition piece still holds in Italy, with the majority of the mortality having 3 or more pre-existing conditions. I think this is reassuring to all of us, but it doesn't change the need to continue to protect the elderly. And in order to protect the elderly, we all need to continue to do the President's directives and guidance for the next week of the 15-day challenge. Finally, I wanted to really close by thanking the laboratory personnel that have been at the front lines. 250,000 tests have been run in the last 7 days. This happened because these large commercial laboratories are doing round-the-clock runs. And remember, all of them are being exposed to the virus in the same way from the swabs. Yet tirelessly, they have worked on and on to get those results available. They are still getting more tests than they can run per day. That's because we were primarily expanded into what we call the Roche high-throughput tri-core machine. Those results have been getting to the clients, and we've asked them to prioritize hospitalized patients. There was a breakthrough today, and I think you'll see this from the FDA, for all of those of you who are waiting for self-swabbing options. Those are going to be available in sometime this week to be able to individuals do their own tests. That said, remember, these platforms are keeping up with those who need to be diagnosed in the hospitals and those who come to the emergency room quite ill, so that hospital beds can be freed up for those that don't have COVID. So that will be critical, that if you don't need a test, and if it doesn't change your clinical course, do not come in to be tested. And I think that mortality data that I gave you should be very reassuring to all of you. Finally, to conclude, New York City. The New York metro area of New Jersey, New York City, and parts of Long Island have an attack rate close to 1 in 1,000. This is 5 times what the other areas are seeing. Through the high throughput lab investigations, we're finding that 28% of the submitted specimens are positive from that area, where it's less than 8% in the rest of the country. So to all of my friends and colleagues in New York, this is the group that needs to absolutely social distance and self-isolate at this time. Clearly, the virus had been circulating there for a number of weeks to have this level of penetrance into the general community.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. The White House Coronavirus Task Force met today, but we also convened, at the President's direction, a conference call with the nation's governors, and we focused on efforts at mitigation, at testing, and supplies. We discussed the President's recent approval of disaster declarations for Washington and California and New York. But we also assured governors who've submitted major disaster declarations that we will be reviewing them in an expeditious manner to ensure the full resources the federal government are brought to bear. The President wanted us to make it clear that the federal government will do whatever it takes to support an effort that is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. We reiterated that to our governors today, listened to them about their specific needs, and frankly, made it clear to them that while the President has published at coronavirus.gov the 15 days to slow the spread for every American, and millions of Americans are addressing these common sense guidelines to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in the days ahead. We made it clear to the governors that this president and this administration fully supports decisions that governors are making in communities and states that are particularly impacted by the spread of the coronavirus, and we are grateful for their efforts. We also spoke to the governors about the importance of the legislation that is currently being negotiated on Capitol Hill, and asked them to encourage members of the House and the Senate to move very quickly. The bill that is currently being negotiated, the President said that he believes will be resolved soon, and we're encouraged by it. We'll speed direct payments to families. The average family of 4 will receive $3,000 directly. There'll be payroll subsidies for small businesses around America to keep people on the payroll while they might be required to stay home. Unemployment insurance benefits, assistance to hospitals and major industries, and we continue to urge the Congress to act and ask the governors to engage their delegations. On the subject of testing, we reiterated our thanks to states across the country that are rapidly expanding testing at drive-through sites and at community sites. As Dr. Birx just reflected, because of the unprecedented public and private partnership that the President initiated with our commercial labs, we stand here today with 313,000 tests having been completed, with the test results delivered to Americans, and still somewhat more than 41,000 have contracted coronavirus. But this state-run effort is continuing to receive the full support of our team at FEMA and at the U.S. Public Health Service. We're deploying personnel, we're deploying resources, and testing is literally expanding around the country by the hour. As Dr. Birx also mentioned, the FDA has been in the process of reviewing less invasive methods of testing. The President and I both reflected on the fact that we have been tested, and we've been working with the FDA to make it possible for self-collected nasal swabs, where individuals could, at the end of their nasal passage, collect a sample. And I'm pleased to report that self-collected swabs can now be collected in clinics and at drive-through testing sites. This will expedite the testing process, of course, but it will also reduce the risk to healthcare providers for exposure to the coronavirus, and it will minimize the drain on personal protective equipment. With the current test that goes pretty significantly up the nasal passage, people have to wear gear and then change out the gear. And this new self-administered test will actually not require the drain on personal protective equipment, and it's all a part of our effort, as Admiral Polovchek will discuss in just a few moments, to meet the supply needs that we have across the country, but to meet them with efforts at conservation as well. On the subject of testing, it's important to remember, as the old book said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And so if you don't have symptoms, you don't need to get a coronavirus test. We encourage every American to adhere to that so that the testing resources are available for people that are symptomatic. We also will be issuing today from Health and Human Services new guidance to direct all commercial labs to prioritize testing for hospitalized patients. And that guidance is going out tonight. We also reminded the governors today that all state laboratories, all hospital laboratories, are now required by law to report the results of coronavirus tests to the CDC. On the subject of supplies, in our meeting today at FEMA, we received a report of the new Supply Chain Stabilization Task Force. Rear Admiral John Polubchek is leading that up at FEMA, and the task force is working to identify medical supplies that exist in the marketplace today, to evaluate the national stockpile, and also working with industries around the country to produce even more of the critical medical supplies. And as the President said, businesses across America are stepping up, maybe as never before in our history. 3M, in fact, has diverted 500,000 N95 masks from commercial customers, and they're being delivered today to New York and Seattle. Facebook, we would acknowledge, has donated their emergency reserve of over 700,000 N95 masks to healthcare workers, and these are just a few examples of the generosity of businesses. We're also seeing companies step forward to repurpose their manufacturing facilities to create ventilators, to create equipment, and I know I speak for the President when I say how grateful and proud we are for that. We also discussed with the governors a real breakthrough on the availability of ventilators. We called on the governors to survey all outpatient surgical centers and hospital operating rooms, because surgical ventilators that anesthesiologists use, because of an FDA decision rendered this last weekend, those can be easily converted now to ventilators that can be used for people struggling with severe illness from the coronavirus. And so we called on our governors in conversations with state leaders to survey all of their surgical centers and hospital operating rooms to identify that equipment, and with the new FDA guidelines, they'll be able to convert those to help meet the needs of ventilators across the country. We are now 8 days into the President's 15 days to slow the spread. And the American people are rising to the challenge. We're doing this. But in the days that remain between now and the end of the 15 days, we're going to need every American to take this seriously. Listen to your state and local health authorities, where there may be additional and stronger guidance in areas where the coronavirus spread has been more severe. But for every American, know that the part that you do, that your family does, that you do in your community to put into practice these principles of social distancing, using a drive-through at the local restaurant, will make an enormous difference in lowering the trajectory of the coronavirus spreading across our country. It's going to take all of us, but with the ongoing cooperation of the American people, with compassion, with the ingenuity of American industry, with dedicated leadership at the state and federal level, I know that we can slow the spread, we can protect our most vulnerable, and we will heal our land.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So I'm Rear Admiral John Polubchek. I'm the Supply Chain Task Force Lead at FEMA. My task is to increase the supply of critical medical supplies, which include personal protective equipment and ventilators, items like that. I just want to take a few moments to explain the organization that we've stood up this week, these last few days, and our approach. So you have a chart behind me. I have two focus leads, one on personal protective equipment, medical supplies, and a focus lead on ventilators.
Him don't sound good.
4 lines of effort. First line of effort you see is preservation, and leaders tonight have talked about that, ability to make our stuff last longer. Acceleration. We have a team of people that are searching the globe for personal protective equipment, figuring out where it is, figuring out if we need to buy it or just transport it and get it here faster. We have a line of effort called reallocation. We're working with our industry partners to illuminate the supply chain. There are many vendors, many distributors, all on separate systems. Nobody has one site picture for that supply chain. We've brought our industry partners in. We're weaving that together to make better allocation decisions and understand where it is and where it needs to go. We have a line called expansion. You've heard some of that today. If those that have wanted to convert plants, those that want to get into the business, we have the tools to help them to go do that. So 2 focus areas right now, PPE and ventilators, 4 lines of effort working the problem of the task to get more here, increase the supplies.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could, the Washington Post reporting that total deaths today crossed 100 for the first time. This morning, your Surgeon General on the Today Show said he wanted Americans to understand that this is going to get really bad. Do you share that prognosis?
Of course I do. It's going to be bad, and we have a lot of people dying from the flu, as you know. We have a very bad flu season on top of everything else. It's very bad. It looks like it could be over 50,000. And certainly this is going to be bad, and we're trying to make it so that it's much, much less bad. And that's what we're doing. I think we're doing a very good job of it. If you look at other countries, what they've been through, and you look at the kind of numbers and compare them to ours, which is a much larger country than most, the numbers are pretty amazing. And it started with the fact that we stopped people from coming in from a highly affected area and infected area. And that was a good thing to do. So yeah, it's bad, and it's going to, obviously the numbers are going to increase with time, and then they're going to start to decrease. And we're going to be opening our country up for business, because our country was meant to be open and working with others, but especially for our workers. And the engine for that whole system is we have to have companies, and these companies are loved by our workers because they're paying big salaries and big dollars to our workers, and we're going to get it all going again very soon, hopefully very, very soon. Please.
Sir, I'm just trying to reconcile the 2 things that you just said. One, that things are going to be very, very bad, and 2, that you want to get the country open back up as quickly as possible. So I guess my question is, if in a week Dr. Birx or Dr. Fauci are telling you we need to continue these measures for the health of the vulnerable populations of the country, are you going to say, I'm sorry, the economy is too important?
Well, you see what happens. I understand the question very well. It's a great question, but we can do 2 things at one time. I will say this: our country's learned a lot. We've learned about social distancing. We've learned about the hands. We've learned about staying away, at least during the time that this is even a little bit around. Disease or whatever you want to call it, many different names. You can go with many different names, but the virus, while it's around. And we can start thinking about, as an example, parts of our country are very lightly affected, very small numbers. And, you know, you look at a state, great governor, Pete Ricketts in Nebraska. You look at the kind of numbers they have out there. They have one of the great hospitals there too, relative to what we're talking about. But you look at Nebraska, you look at Idaho, you look at Iowa, you look at I could name many countries that are
many countries or states
very, very well, and that are not affected to the same extent, or frankly not even nearly to the extent of New York, which is really, I'm dealing with Governor Cuomo, and we're dealing very well together. We'll be sending that ship up, by the way, as you know. We have a ship going to Los Angeles. We'll also be, the ship is coming out of a very large repair. It's all ready to go, and very soon will be. And over the next 3 or 4 weeks, that'll be coming up to New York. We'll go to New York Harbor, and it'll be fully supplied. So they're working on that right now.
Maybe Dr. Birx can speak to this. Do you share the President's optimism that in a week we might have a situation where we can say, you know, there's a few hot spots, but much of the country...
Well, I didn't say in a week, but I said soon. It's going to be soon. It's not going to be 3 or 4 months, as some people were saying, and a lot of people thought originally, but I would certainly let you answer.
Are you worried that some cities and states that haven't had the infection yet are lagging indicators, and that we're going to start seeing cases?
So you raised 2 important issues. One, I think you all know a lot of our tests have had to go to hospitals at this time so that we can diagnose people who are at risk, to give them options to get these new therapeutic options. none of these therapeutic options are available if you don't know your diagnosis. So we've been very much focused on that. With adding Abbott, Thermo Fisher, Hologic, and now Cepheid platforms. Cepheid is that new platform that is point of care, but slower. So, you got to match the throughput, the need to what kind of equipment you have. Now that we have all those platforms moving simultaneously, we can go back to doing case finding and surveillance in the areas that have the most lower numbers, as well as doing mitigation more aggressively in the places that have higher numbers. We went out with a very blunt force. I mean, we have to all be honest, we had to do that because we weren't sure where the virus was and where it is going. I think over this week, we're concentrated on figuring out exactly where the virus is and making projections about where it's going and the impact of our mitigation pieces. We learned this in tackling epidemics around the world. You have to focus the resources and the intervention and the structural prevention interventions in the areas where the virus is circulating. Otherwise, people never understand why you're doing this and they don't have any virus. So it has to be very tailored geographically, and it may have to also be very tailored by age group, really understanding who's at the greatest risk and understanding how to protect them.
Showing within 3 months, as the president said, we won't need to follow these broad guidelines that he's
The only data that we all have, and I think you all know what it is, the two areas that have moved through their curve is China and South Korea. So those are the two countries that we're learning from. Those were 8 to 10 week curves. Each state in each hotspot in the United States is going to be its own curve because the seeds came in at different times. So Washington State is on their curve. They're about 2 weeks ahead of New York. And so each of these have to be done in a very granular way to really understand where we are. And it's the charge that the president has given us is to use all of our data analytics and all of our data inputs to really define those issues about where the virus is, where is it going, and what predictions we can make about where we are in that bell-shaped curve.
I think that's a great definition, and I will say we're going to be watching our senior citizens very closely. We're going to be watching certain hotspots like New York, and within New York you have areas which are troubling, and we'll be working with the governor and the mayor and everybody else on those spots. But at the same time, at a certain point, we have to get open and we have to get moving. We don't want to lose these companies, and we don't want to lose these workers. We want to take care of our workers. So we'll be doing something, I think, relatively quickly, but we've learned a lot during this period. This was a very necessary period. Tremendous information was gained, but we can do two things at one time. And again, I say we have a very active flu season, more active than most. It's looking like it's heading to 50,000 or more deaths, not cases, 50,000 deaths, which is, that's a lot. And you look at automobile accidents, which are far greater than any numbers we're talking about. That doesn't mean we're going to tell everybody no more driving of cars. So we have to do things to get our country open. But this has been an incredible period of learning, and we'll have announcements over the next fairly short period as to the timing. John, please.
First, I want to ask about these guidelines on testing. Obviously, Senator Rand Paul has tested positive for coronavirus, but he was not in contact with anybody who was known positive, and he didn't have any major symptoms. Under your guidelines, under the guidelines that have been outlined here, he would not have gotten a test. He got one anyway. So what do you say to him? He's pointed out that if he hadn't gone basically in defiance of these guidelines and got tested, he might still be showing up to the Senate right now and infecting the whole U.S. Senate.
So that's why this was important. That's why this recommendation to the American people was important. Because we have been saying that there is a level of asymptomatic or mild spread. And that's why each person has to be responsible. Each person has to be responsible.
You're not answering his question.
With others, the 6 feet.
Dodgy.
Social distance, so thank you. But also assuming that everyone that you're interacting with could be positive. And And that gets into the hand washing piece, and that gets into the other piece.
Still haven't answered the question.
I think until we really figure out the respiratory transmission versus the surface transmission, and this hard surface transmission, not fabric, will be really...
I don't care how long you talk, I'm not going to forget the fact that you're not answering his question.
People would be holding on to things that other people had recently held on to. So that's the real question.
But if we can just keep with the example of Rand Paul, obviously there are many other people that would be in a similar situation. Just keep with this one example. If he hadn't gotten that test, he would still be showing up.
Yeah.
And to the Senate every day at his place of work.
Now answer the question.
He wouldn't have been infecting others because of the social distancing, washing your hands.
You're still not answering the question, lady.
So we've talked about also how people make choices because of their jobs, that they have to come in. You'll notice I was not here over the weekend. I think this is the part that we really need to take personal responsibility for. Saturday, I had a little low-grade fever. So, actually, probably a GI thing. But you know, I'm meticulous. I'm a physician. I looked it up. I ended up piggy banking from Walter Reed. So I got a test late Saturday night, and I'm negative. I stayed home another day just to make sure. That's how we protect one another. So, you know, unless everybody's taking their temperature every day, we can't say that he had no symptoms. These are the kinds of things that we have to do for one another. This is the personal responsibility that I'm talking about, that we all have to practice.
Hey, Mr. President, when you say...
Damn, this bitch still ain't answered the question, bro. She good now.
Than the problem itself.
She's so good.
Are you saying that if we kept these measures that we're doing now...
They said, yo, if you're asymptomatic, if you're not showing any symptoms, do not come down to testing centers and try to get a test. Let's save the test for people who are already showing symptoms of being sick, so we can make sure if it is or isn't the seasonal flu or the coronavirus which they are infected with. So if you're not showing any symptoms, just try to stay home and don't feel compelled to come get tested. Then they said Senator Ron Paul tested positive for the coronavirus even though he was asymptomatic, which means he's not showing symptoms, but someone still gave him a test. And that's what the guy was trying to ask. How was he able to get a test if you're telling everyone else don't come and use the test if you're not feeling bad? And they would not answer it because he's a senator and we're giving out free tests first to all of our senators. Oh, that's all you had to say, lady. We know that's what it is. You know, he's in the club, so he has club privileges. They did not answer that question.
Yes. For a couple of months too.
Well, there will be a place. At some point, we're going to open up our country. It's going to be fairly soon.
Weeks or months?
I'm not looking at months. I can tell you right now. We're going to be opening up our country, and we're going to be watching certain areas, and we're going to be practicing everything that Deborah's referring to right here. We're going to be watching this very closely, but you can't keep it closed for the next, for years. Okay, this is going away.
For years.
We're going to win the battle, but we also have, you have tremendous responsibility. We have jobs. We have people get tremendous anxiety and depression, and you have suicides over things like this. When you have terrible economies, you have death, definitely would be in far greater numbers than the numbers that we're talking about with regard to the virus. So we have an obligation. We have a great country. There's no country like it in the world, and there's no economy like it in the world. I mean, we were just blazing. We were coming out with numbers that some numbers weren't even reported because it was already this had happened. They were meaningless. I got numbers about myself that were meaningless because by the time the numbers came in, it's a whole different world with this. But I will tell you that we can do both things, John. We can do them both at the same time. I mean, that's okay. What we have gone through is a tremendous learning process, and we've also solved a lot of problems, but we've gone through a tremendous learning situation. Now, we're building hospitals in New York. We're building hospitals in California. We're building hospitals in the state of Washington. We've been in touch with the governors. Today I spoke with a man that I happen to like. I spoke with Phil in New Jersey, and we're going to be doing something very meaningful in New Jersey. We're doing something. I spoke with J.B. Pritzker, called me today. We're going to be helping them out in Illinois. We're doing a lot of things in Florida. We're doing a lot of things, and between FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers and the Admiral in your group, in terms of the purchasing, that's what he does. He purchases. It's supposed to be great. I'll tell you in about 2 days. But he's going to do a fantastic job. So we have an incredibly talented group of people. But yeah, we'll be doing 2 things and 3 things at one time. Well, at the same time, though, we're going to be watching very closely the hotspots. We're going to be taking care and watching very closely our senior citizens, especially those with a problem or an illness. We're going to be watching them very, very closely. And we can do that and have an open economy, have an open country. And we have to do that because that causes other problems. And maybe it causes much bigger problems than the problem we're talking about now. You understand? Jeff, please.
Mr. President, following up on that same topic again on your tweet, do you think that the cure so far has been worse than the problem?
I think the cure has been very tough. This has been a very tough. This was an operation. This was somebody going to a doctor and saying, you need an operation. And we've had an operation. We've learned a lot. And we fixed a lot of problems. One of the things we fixed, if you look at the obsolete system that this administration inherited, it wasn't meant for this. It was meant for a small group of people, and even for that, it was not very good and very obsolete. We now have a testing program now that will hopefully be able to be used for many years into the future. Should we have another event like this? I don't think you'll have another event like this. This is very unique. You look back into time, you look back decades and decades. We can name them all, even if you go back 10 years. You know, you go back to 2009, but that wasn't like this, as it turned out. But they lost a lot of people. We were early, Jeff, because of the fact that we closed early. That was a big move. Please, Kristen. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
You had said previously, I think from this podium, that the virus could still be with us through July or August. By suggesting now that the government might change these standards or these recommendations.
Well, it's not change. It's no. We're doing things. Yeah, this was a learning experience for the people of the country.
And the time frame has changed for you. The July-August time frame of when you think the virus will be under control.
Well, I think we've learned a lot. I think that there's so much discipline now that we never had. Nobody ever said, don't shake hands. I did actually before I became a politician. Once I became a politician, then it's hard getting used to not doing it because, you know, you do it with everybody, with literally thousands of people a week. You're shaking hands with big groups of people. You know, there's a lot of, we've learned a lot. There's a great discipline that this whole country has learned, having to do with distancing, having to do with shaking hands. I think a lot of it's going to stay long after the virus is gone. I really think it's probably good practice anyway, but I think it's going to stay long after the virus is gone. But we have to open our country because that causes problems that, in my opinion, could be far bigger problems. Far bigger. This is a medical, a severe medical situation that could cause problems far beyond the medical and then increase the medical problems to things that had nothing to do with this original medical problem. We can't let that happen to our country. We have the greatest country in the world. I'm not going to let that happen. But this 2 weeks that we have spent has been an incredible learning period and process. Please, Kristen.
One, you said it's likely going to be weeks, not months, before you suggest easing these guidelines that you put out. Have any of the doctors on your team told you that's the right path to pursue? We
spoke to them today, and I was telling them that we have 2 things to look for. Don't forget the doctors. If it were up to the doctors, they may say, let's keep it shut down. Let's shut down the entire world, because, again, you're up to almost 150 countries. So let's shut down the entire world And when we shut it down, that would be wonderful. Let's keep it shut for a couple of years. You know, we can't do that. And you can't do that with a country, especially the #1 economy anywhere in the world, by far.
By far.
Number 1 economy in the world, you can't do that.
By far.
Because, well, it causes bigger problems than the original. That's why I talk about the cure being worse than the problem. We can't have the cure be worse than the problem. But what we have done, so this is not retracing, this isn't anything. We've done it really well, because this 2-week period has been good. And I'm not saying it ends at that time. You know, we have another 7 days or so. I'm not saying it ends at that time. But I am saying, sir, it's been like this incredible learning process. That's going to go into the future. That's going to go even as we open up our country. And we're going to be watching New York, and we're going to be watching California. We're going to be watching the state of Washington and other places. Illinois is becoming a hot spot. And we can do both. Now, we may quarantine, I mean, we will be quarantining many people in these areas. There are other areas that just aren't affected, or they're affected very little. And why would we close down 100% of the country? There are areas within New York where New York will be open, but there are areas within New York. Remember this, New York has the New York Stock Exchange. It has NASDAQ. It has the exchanges. To close the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and with all of the great work they're doing, I mean, they've gone largely to computer. You look at the floor, it's incredible what they can do, but it's fully open. But we don't want to be doing that. But we can do, what I'm saying basically is that we can do 2 things simultaneously. And we've had this incredible learning period. Plus, people have been in a period, and they won't be calling, oh, gee, because I've got many, many people that now come to me and say, we get it. We think we can really do it now and do it while we're open. So at some point, we'll be setting some guidelines. We'll be setting some datelines, and we'll be announcing them in the not-too-distant future.
Any of the doctors on your team endorsed easing the federal
Not
guidelines?
endorsed. We talk together, and I think they're okay with it, and I'm okay with it. But this could be a much bigger problem. This could create a much bigger problem than the problem that you start off with. Now, other nations are going to have to do what they're going to do, but they'll probably do something very similar. But in our case, much more so than anyone else, because of the magnitude of our economy, the tremendous size of what we've built and what we have, and the jobs involved. You know, you have almost 160 million jobs in this country now, the most ever, by far the most ever. The number of jobs, almost 160 million. So we can't turn that off and think it's going to be wonderful. There'll be tremendous repercussions. There will be a tremendous death from that. Death. You know, you're talking about death. Probably more death from that than anything that we're talking about with respect to the virus.
If we continue with these strict guidelines, then if we ease them?
No, I think we're going to do them both. I think that's what I'm saying. I think we can do them both. Now, we haven't announced a date, but we're getting fairly close to coming up with a date, and it's a much shorter period of time than I've been hearing the news report. And I think everybody should be happy with that. But great knowledge was gained. Please.
I had two questions for you, Mr. President. My second one is on what your economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, said today. He was talking about this, and he said that there are going to have to be some difficult trade-offs if you do ease these guidelines.
I'm listening to this through Agenda Free TV. So my man Steve Lookner at Agenda Free TV, he's actually streaming his live newscast, and he's playing this on his channel. So I'm not sure where he's picking up the feed from, if it's NBC or whatever, but if you go to YouTube, Agenda Free TV, and it should be live right now, and that's Steve Lookner, and he's listening to this right now.
The invisible scourge is gone. Maybe it's going to stay that way. Not a bad thing to stay that way. But no, there are trade-offs. There's no question about that. But I actually think it's going to, I think in the end we're going to end up being bigger, better, and stronger. We have learned a lot. Please.
We're seeing an increase of cases in Latin America, in the Middle East, in some places in Asia. Are you considering a new round of travel ban?
No, we're not really. Something like that could happen, I guess, but we're not really. They thought we were going to have bans within the United States. We didn't do that. We're not going to have that. Hopefully that'll take care of itself. No, in Latin America there's been an uptick. Yeah, please.
Just quickly, a second question. What prompted you to say at the beginning of your comments that you're going to take care of the Asian Americans? Has there been something in particular that was?
Yeah, because it seems that there could be a little bit of nasty language toward the Asian Americans in our country, and I don't like that at all. These are incredible people. They love our country, and I'm not going to let it happen. So I just wanted to make that point.
After he called it the Chinese virus? Yeah, is it because you said the Chinese virus?
That happen to be of Asian heritage, and I'm not going to let that happen.
It's of Asian.
You said you want to reopen the country, but most schools across the country are closed. 2 states now are closed for the rest of the school year. How are parents supposed to go back to work and educate their children?
Yeah, the governors of the various states will have a lot of leeway. If we open up, and when we open up, the governors in certain states, for instance, you go to some of the states I just mentioned, those schools are going to be open. In many cases, they're open now. But the schools are going to be open. In other cases, Governor Cuomo, Gavin Newsom of California, certain governors are going to maybe have a decision to make. Now, they may make a decision to keep them open in a certain part of New York and maybe in Westchester County or wherever it may be, they'll keep them closed. But they're going to have leeway. We're giving the governors a lot of leeway.
Decision to close it several months out at this point. These governors are saying they're expecting a peak in the next couple of months, and have made the decision.
Yeah, the governors are going to make those decisions. That's going to be up to the governors. And they're very capable. They'll be able to make the decisions. Please.
Sir, can you explain why the $2 trillion economic stimulus is needed if you are going to reopen the country in a period of weeks, not months?
Because the virus has had a big impact on our country, so we're going to give a stimulus so that the workers, it's not their fault, it wasn't the workers' fault, and we are going to give a kick so that it's a kick, and this way we think the workers can get a fair start. The small businesses, we're taking very good care of. We want to take care of these small businesses. They really are the engine of this country. A lot of people don't know that. You know, everyone thinks of these great, big, beautiful businesses, who, by the way, have been very badly hurt also. But the small businesses have really historically been the engine, and they still are the engine of the country. And you'd be amazed, the workers love those businesses, and the workers contact us, and they want us to help those businesses, because that's where they've made their living. That's where they've been paid a lot of money over the years. And you've been seeing what's happened over the last 3 years, where salaries and wages have gone up very substantially for those workers. And then we got caught by this sudden craziness coming into our country and coming all over the world. So we need to make sure that the companies are strong and that the workers are strong, and that's what we're doing. And hopefully the Republicans and Democrats are going to be able to make a deal. They're actually fairly close, but we'll see what happens. Please.
Need $2 trillion is my question.
Well, one of the things you're going to have to save companies that have been shattered. You're going to have to save various. I mean, you know a lot of the companies yourselves. We have a company that was, I think, the greatest company in the world, named Boeing. Boeing's going to need some help. Now, Boeing had some difficulty before. That's unlike others. We have other companies had the obvious problem that everybody knows about from a little more than a year ago. The double problem was a big one. And then on top of it, as they're getting ready to really show their stuff, on top of it, we all get hit by this. And obviously, the airlines are going to have a problem, but the airlines aren't going to be buying from Boeing or from anyone else right now because
like you said, people, I don't know, people don't like to be sad. I get it, I understand. This shit is kind of depressing. What the fuck is going on? Nobody wants to feel depressed. People really don't want to feel oppressed.
Period of 13 months, a very rough period, a horrible period, unbelievable period. You would have told me this would have happened.
Why? One of them goddamn lips. Why?
One of the truly great, probably. A company could have that kind of an impact, but Boeing, we have to work with it. For for two reasons. Number one, it's a great company that we have to save, and number two, it produces.
Now you get it. You know what? Nobody don't really want to be serious, bro. You think motherfuckers want to be serious? Nobody don't want to talk about serious shit, man. Motherfuckers want to pretend like they want to talk about serious shit, because it's really just average shit that they already got kind of an answer for. But then when it's some real serious shit that you ain't got no answers for, nobody don't want to talk about that shit. Nobody got no answers for this shit right now. Nobody don't know what the fuck Trump and his cabinet really gonna pull off or try to do, and that shit got people scared, bro. Nobody don't want to talk about it. People hate to admit the fear.
So that's a very good question. So what we do know is now we can backtrack.
Bitch, you don't know what a good question is because you ain't answered the last question my man asked you, yo.
Probably got infected versus when they were exposed. And so when you start backing out each of those pieces, when you start seeing hospitalized patients, you know that the virus has probably been there for 3 to 4 weeks, substantially circulating within the population. So that's what we're looking for. Now, as all of our testing is improved, and we want to really applaud the group who has worked on it. You know, if you look at the pandemic flu preparedness, all of this was built on the flu platform. It was never, ever thought that you have a simultaneous respiratory disease hitting at exactly the same time as your flu hits.
Why not? Why didn't y'all think of that?
When you're doing all of your flu surveillance,
It's just a what if. Hey, what if?
Of these pneumonias and flu-like illnesses characterized as a flu-like illness for the last 4 to 6 weeks. And so that's really a caution to all of us. And so when we get through all of this, we'll be looking at each of the pandemic preparedness plans. A long way of saying, we know Washington State is a little bit ahead of New York because of the hospitalization record. What we will get to as a country with the amount of testing that will be available is being able to do what the president talked about.
Nobody don't know what the fuck to think, bro.
Simultaneously doing containment, contract tracing.
Yeah, everybody's scared.
And I think right now we put everything into mitigation.
And the people who
geographically
weren't scared in the beginning, now they starting to think, yo. Like I say, man, my office, I'm going to the office every day, but the rest of the staff is very limited. And so I saw one of my coworkers today who I haven't seen, like, you know, all week or all last week. And she one of the ones who always talk, yo, like, I've been keeping up with the numbers and shit. So when California started announcing high ass numbers, I told 2 of my homies, y'all, like, one of my homegirls, like, she's like, she going over to Cali to stay a couple days with her aunt and uncle. I'm like, you sure you want to do that right now? And then my coworker, she's like on the same tip. She was like, oh, I'm about to take a trip out to Cali. I'm like, are you sure? Like, this is the best time for that shit, yo? She's like, I'm not letting this thing stop me from enjoying myself and da-da-da-da-da and this and that. And then I saw my coworker today. I was like, what about that trip to Cali? She was like, I'm going to put it off for a little while. I'm like, yeah, I thought so. That shit don't seem like it a little small thing no more, do it? She's like, no, everybody's going crazy over this. And I'm like, yeah, a little while ago when I was talking to you about it, there was tissue at the grocery store. A couple weeks later, we talking about it. Ain't no tissue at the grocery store. Shit changed fast, don't it? I don't like telling people I told you so, but I ain't gonna lie. I like telling people I told you so. But there's like a few people that I'm like, I told you so. Shit's gonna get bad, yo. Shit's getting bad. And once again, I'm not as concerned about the virus. For me, it's the military enforcement of all these fucking rules and shit. Like, that's the scary part, yo. Martial law, yo.
So a question
question about the serology blood tests, which some people said hold some real promise here. When will those be FDA approved, and when will they be widely available?
So that's what she was just asking about. So these IgGs and IgM, both point of care, I can tell you it would be no problem making ELISA today. But then you're drawing blood, you're processing blood, you're running plates. That's what we did in the past. We really want a finger prick type assay where you can just put a fingerprint on and get your IgG and IgM. So that's what we're looking for.
Well, that's approved and available.
I can't answer because I have to look at where each of the companies are that are in their development processes. Well, there's some that are developed now that they were using in Singapore. So we're looking at those to see how those work. So we're looking at those, but we're very quality oriented because we want to make sure we don't give people false negatives or false positives.
I have a question for you. So we have a lot of very angry media all around this room.
Angry media all around this room.
And because of social distancing, we are keeping them empty. And they are keeping them empty. Will there ever be a time when all of those really angry people who don't like me much to start off with, but now they really don't like me, will there ever be a time when these seats are full to the brim like it used to be, where people are almost sitting on each other's lap? And this whole row over here is packed up. And now they're outside wanting to get in, and they're very jealous of all of these reporters.
Why does he grind it so hard though? Like,
it'll look like this forever.
So we're learning a lot about social distancing and respiratory diseases. And I think those are the discussions we had to have in the future. It was what you were talking about, changing our whole behavior patterns of what we touch and being conscious of that. I remember when I was worried Saturday morning, I was trying to think, what all did I touch on Friday? Did I touch a doorknob? Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I not wash my hands? I mean, you go through this whole piece. Did I touch my face by accident? So I think this awareness that we all now have that we didn't have before, where we would have pushed through that door or turned that doorknob because we were in such a hurry. Now I think all of us think twice. I think all of you think twice.
But when the virus is
now this means all doors need to be automatic open now.
I don't know. You have to look and see if we have a new respiratory piece. Certainly, this is the way we set up every clinic all around the world when we're worried about TB and TB transmission.
I'm wondering if you could comment on the new measures that Britain has put into place. Also, Germany has said it doesn't want to have crowds of less than 2 people except for families, which is a pretty restrictive number. Does that inform your thinking as you are coming up with advice for this next period for the president and vice president?
The president and vice president have asked us to look at every single scenario in every single country. Because the more data we have, the more our decisions can be completely data informed and really understanding what impact that has. I mean, we're interested right now. I mean, Italy obviously waited until about March 7th. The virus had been circulating for almost 4 weeks before actually going into that methodology. But for the first time, it looks like their mortality rates are starting to decline, which would be an illustration that things that they did 2 and 3 weeks ago may actually have an impact. Those are the kinds of data we're looking at very carefully, as well as very careful data within the United States of exactly where the virus is, what's the attack rate, has it moved out of its more confined geography, and really looking at each of those pieces of information. It's a lot of data to go through. Well, I think if you remember just a week ago, Britain had a very different approach. So everybody is adapting to their data. I haven't looked at the data that informed that decision, so I can't really comment on how they got to that decision there or in Germany.
Just to be clear, do you agree with the president's push to reopen the country? He said some of his doctors that he's talking to about this, he says, I think they're okay with it. Are you okay with that?
What the president has asked us to do is to assemble all the data and give him our best medical recommendation based on all the data. That's what he's asked us to do. And so that's what we'll be doing this week. We were going to have to do it this week anyway because we had to make a decision come Monday about the 15 days to reduce social spread. So this is consistent with our mandate to really use every piece of information that we can in order to give the president our opinion that's backed up by data. Not our perception, but our opinion that's backed up by data.
Data now, you think you could in a week? Like what would your assessment be of right now?
Well, we're pulling all of the data pieces in now, and that's really critical. I will never speculate on data. I will have to see the data in order to really understand it.
And I think a big factor is the mortality rate. We're talking about the mortality rate. You know, when we first started, people were thinking about 3 and 4%, and now we're talking about a much lower number than that. I think it's a number that will be a lot different than people want.
It's going to be the lowest number than anyone has ever seen.
We have talked about by people.
Because our data is the best. We have the best data.
That has become from the very beginning. That was our emphasis. You know, when we started 2 or 3 weeks ago talking with one another, our focus has been on how do we protect those with pre-existing conditions and the elderly. And I think these steps were about protecting with pre-existing conditions. So the whole key to changing the mortality rates is not just the hospital care, but preventing them from going into the hospital to begin with, because you don't want them to be infected.
It's much lower than we originally thought. I mean, frankly,
yes,
it's a lot lower.
Well, you know what the estimate in Wuhan was originally? It was over 3%. When they look outside of Wuhan, it was about 0.7%. It depends very much. In South Korea, it was about 0.7, 0.8%. But I don't want, that's like a tyranny of averages. And that's probably missing 50-60% of the data because no one was testing asymptomatics. Remember, in every country, you had to be symptomatic to get a test. So we're making case fatality rates when we're missing a significant part of the data. So if anything, it will go lower, but I don't want people, that should not be reassuring because the death rates escalate with age and pre-existing conditions. So I really want to be
Man, this shit been a goddamn show forever, bro. It's a play. They're all actors, man. They're all actors in a big ass play.
The average age of the person
the script is already written.
So there is really a significant issue.
Like I say, these motherfuckers can tell us right now, oh, well, we don't know what we're going to do in the next few days. These motherfuckers know what they're going to do next week. I guarantee.
Somebody is very sick, they go to a doctor, go to a hospital, they record it, they're very sick, and then they live or they don't live, see what happens. But when somebody isn't very sick at all, I've heard people that they don't even know they had it, and they're healing. Then I've heard people that have like a cold, or they have a runny nose, or even people that stay home and they think they have the flu, or in some cases they think they have a really bad case of the flu. But all of those people, that vast majority of, beyond vast majority of people, they're not reporting, they're not calling the doctor, they're not calling it, they're just getting better. So you would think it would have to be because the people that are sick are going to a doctor or they're going someplace and they're going to say, make me better. The people that are just short of that and people that aren't even, many people where they literally don't even know.
See, this is where you need to shut the fuck up, bro. You're making no sense now. You lost me, bro. You lost me.
So you don't know anyone, you don't know.
You don't know what you're saying.
What you know is all the people that are really sick. Because all of the people that are really sick are going to a doctor in some form, and the doctor is reporting it in all cases. So,
but that's why your question about the antibody test is so critical, because that will give us really a much better baseline to really understand.
So, Mr. President, you talk about how it could be a much, much bigger problem. You said that at several stages on whether or not we keep these guidelines in place. You talk about higher death. Are you talking about suicide? Like, help us understand.
I'm talking about many forms.
If the risk of a depression, is that what you're getting at?
We're talking about tremendous. Look, number one, it's the country itself. You're talking about tremendous disruption economically, but you're talking about massive depression, massive numbers of suicide.
Economic depression.
No, I'm not talking about economic, although you could be talking about that too.
So
what I'm talking about is
depression.
People suffering massive depression because they had a fantastic job and now they have no idea you know, what's going on. Now, here's the good news. If they get the bill passed, we're taking care of those people. We're going to really take good care of those people, beyond what any country has done for people. But there's never been anything like this. No, I'm talking about where people suffer massive depression, where people commit suicide, where tremendous...
Man, they closed the churches down, man. Jesus don't even know where to come back to. How he gonna know where to go if all the churches are closed? Guess they ain't praying hard enough. Pharaoh, let my people go. And Pharaoh was gonna let the Jews go, but I mean the Israelites. But God hardened Pharaoh's heart and made him change his mind. God hardened his heart? What the he was gonna do the right thing, and then God changed his heart to make him not want to do the right thing, so God can punish him more harshly. Fucking Bible is weird as shit, man. I'm done with this shit, y'all. You know, you feel me? Alright, guys, I got 2 layers of paint on the face. On the face. I think that might be a good stopping point. Now, that might be it, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do like at least one more layer of paint to just sharpen up some edges, maybe add a few more highlights here and there. But I'll do all of that towards the end after I finish detailing the hair. Now what we're gonna do now is clean up the studio so I can cook me an easy meal and get ready for work tomorrow. Oh yeah, I will sleep well tonight. I feel tired. Shit. Yo, I had to post that shit on my goddamn Facebook, yo. Kiddo Copeland telling motherfuckers to keep sending that money in. I don't give a damn coronavirus shut the churches down. Y'all better not stop tithing and offering, or you're going to hell. I don't care if you got laid off from your job because of the virus. If the job is your source, then you gonna lose. Jesus is your source. So you give that money. I don't care if you gotta use an app, slide it under the door. You make sure you get your tithes and offerings to that church. Before you go, let's pass around a donation plate one more time. It's looking so good right now, yo. Can't wait to start adding those highlights onto the hair. Shit's gonna be fire, son. Thanks, bro. Yep, y'all can see it slowly coming to life. I'm really, really liking this piece. You know, like I said, As long as we keep a connection, I will be here delivering the art and education throughout this apocalypse, the coronavirus apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? We all gotta do our part to social distance to help flatten the curve. We're living in some troubling, uncertain times. Keep your head up. Like I say, expect the best. Always expect the best. This shit might be over in, you know, by the end of their little 15-day period or whatever. But don't stop listening for the bullshit. Because if you don't listen at all, they gonna throw that bullshit at you and you gonna miss it. Then that shit come back and bite you in the ass. Just keep listening. Listen to what they say. Pay attention to what they saying and doing. Just so they don't throw that bullshit up in there. And you get caught unaware. I don't like being caught unaware. I want to see the bullshit coming so I can. Motherfucker, niggas gonna throw bullshit at me and I'm just stand there and take it. Shit, who the fuck you think you is? R. Kelly? No. Ha. Now I can see. Why you don't wear your glasses when you paint? Because I sit this close to the goddamn canvas. I can see that close. God damn it. Alright, guys. Once again, that's off. Appreciate y'all chilling in the studio with me, man. Kicking it. Keeping me company while I produce these portraits. Make sure all my settings and everything back to normal. And we out here. I catch y'all on the flip side.